Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Alejandro Kikuchi from Workana. I'm sitting at home in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, in KL. Because of the pandemic, of course, we are not really using our offices much. A few weeks ago, Workana's operations in Southeast Asia turned 2 years old. So we are quite happy about that. The company in general is about to turn 9. So time goes by, but these are nice milestones. Anyway, as everybody knows, the COVID-19, the pandemic, brings about unprecedented changes, and it's crucial for business to be able to recalibrate. What Workana is doing in that regard is working closely with many businesses, helping them reliably hire and work with remote talent, full-timers or on-demand. And also, in our efforts to support companies in this journey, we are hosting these sessions in which industry leaders share their insights on the best ways and to tackle this normal from different angles. So far, we've had great conversations with a rich variety of businesses. We've spoken with huge corporations such as Petronas or Google or Reckitt Benckiser. Also, tech startups such as Fave and Naluri and Curlek, just to name a few examples. And now we have the opportunity to talk to Aiching, CEO and co-founder of Piktochart, one of Malaysia's most well-known tech startups. So let me add her to the stream. Hey, Ching.
Hey, Kiku. Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining.
No problem.
Yeah. It's funny how these events are conducted this way now, and it's been this way for so long now, for many months, right? It's
Yeah.
not that much of a new thing anymore, but
Yeah.
still, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for joining. As a brief introduction, would you mind sharing a little bit about you and your company?
Yeah, sure. So I am Aiching, and I am co-founder, one out of two of in Picto. So I run this company actually, and we started it. We incorporated it 10 years ago. Believe it or not, we launched it 9 years ago with my husband, and we started out as an infographic tool. So what we saw in the market was this opportunity where people were doing more pull marketing or content marketing, inbound marketing, however you want to call it. And then we thought that the entire trend was just going to become more and more visual. So infographics made a ton of sense, and it still does today, but the connotation of infographics has really changed. So today, I think we call ourselves more of a visual communication tool, and we started realizing that although lots of people are still using infographics, they're not used for, the infographics that we think of, like the long pages that are eye candies, designed for marketing teams to use. But primarily now, people use us in order to communicate information in a really succinct way, in a very, very visual way. And this could be in the form of a report that is more, understandable within an organization, or even a pitch or a presentation, or a proposal, etc. So life has really changed. And we also have a new product right now. It's called Picto Story. So what it does is precisely this. Kiku, you mentioned that there were tons of this type of events right now, right? Like going on, and the pandemic, like in 2020, has just accelerated it. So what we help to do is, like, we could upload a video like this and then put it on, Picto Story, have it auto transcribed, and from the transcription, so from the words, you'll be able to edit out, like, oh, I made a mistake, and I didn't want to say that, so I could take that out, or I could export like our 40-minute or 45-minute like conversation into shorter snippets where it can be just like 1 or 2 minutes talking about one particular thing. And by the way, I will probably ask for the recording because I want to use it myself as well, like on Picto Story. So it's just been helping people repurpose this like long form videos and then turning it into really short snippets that are ready for social media. So that's, in summary, the two products that I'm running right now.
That's great. That's great. And I could see how that's valuable, not only for sharing on social media, as you're saying, right? And I will happily share this recording with you, because of course, then resharing snippets from this very conversation might be a great thing, and we always do that in text with quotes, but snippets from the
Yeah.
video is also a good idea.
Yeah.
I could also imagine how that's also useful for companies to use internally, right? You do a
Yeah.
town hall sharing results from the last
Yeah.
quarter, and then perhaps
Yeah.
you want to highlight bits of that an hour long meeting, right, throughout,
Yeah.
and then you can do that as well.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
correct.
great,
That's
great,
correct.
great.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't used it so much internally, apart from a couple of like more HR messages. But then externally, definitely, like whenever I'm on a talk, I would, like just upload the thing and then think about like what was the highlight of it, and then I'll repost it on my own like personal social media networks, and that has really helped. So yeah,
Great, great, great. Are you considering, because also once you take that video and transcribe it, that
yeah,
opens the door to, then it's in text. Everything that was
yeah,
said is in text, right? And that opens the door to doing all sorts of crazy things with algorithms, like, hey,
yeah,
you're using this word a lot, or I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
this,
we haven't gotten to that stage yet, but yeah, I think the team really wanted, to be able to, let's say, remove filler words, because for me, like since I started doing this whole video thing, like I didn't even realize how many filler words I use. For
oh, yeah.
example,
I
and
mean, I do.
like, and and I say it over and over again. Like when I listen to myself, I get so annoyed. So it's it's something that for sure I think there is a market for that, but we're not immediately working on it. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, I know I do as well, and we use this as a tool. It's for a different purpose because it's for some of our sales calls, but at the end, it's the same functionality. It records our some of our meetings and then creates a transcription, and
Yeah.
you read it, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, do I really talk like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
What
yeah.
What do y'all use? Out of curiosity, I mean, like I'm totally curious. Yeah.
Jiminy.
Jiminy. Okay.
Yeah, JIMINNY.
Okay. All right. We'll
Yeah,
go check it out. Not heard of it. So.
check them out. Yeah, they're great,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
free advertising for them, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, we are recording our sales calls, and
Hmm.
then well, for coaching
Yeah.
purposes, of course. But then
Yes.
those funny things happen as well. Like, wow, I say
Right.
yeah, and like every
Yeah.
6 words. Why do I do
I
that?
know. I know. I did the same. Like when I started like looking at my, own transcription, I was like, really? I speak like that? But yeah, I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
On text,
So,
I sound like a teenager or something like that. But but anyway, hey, but it's great that
oh,
you're working on this new product.
mhm.
And I mean, it's great. It definitely makes sense now that uh, social media usage spiked, right?
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
spiked slash got saturated. So make sure
Yeah.
you still stand out is
Yeah.
crucial.
That's right. That's totally correct.
Definitely.
So yeah, we see the same things, and I mean we've all been like not just at the on the side of like content creation, but also consumers, right? So each of us, I think, are the way we spend our time and what we look for now when we're online has also like for me it's changed quite a bit as well. So yeah,
Definitely, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, for sure. So besides what you just mentioned, and besides developing new products that are adapted to this new world, how's the pandemic affected you in other ways, in terms
yeah,
of how you work with your teams, for example? I
yeah,
mentioned this, and spoilers ahead. I do know you work a bit remotely, and you've been used to beforehand. So that's
yeah.
kind of what I'm trying to.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So actually, my summary, I think this is the pandemic. So yes, you're right that we have been working semi like remotely for like 4 or 5 years actually before the pandemic hit us. So then we had about 50, slightly more than 50% of our people based in Penang. And then we had a couple in Europe, and then and people like just basically spread all over. And that like we've always flown people into Penang like twice a year, and now that we can no longer do that, so it's very, very different. But last year in April, we made the decision to go 100% remote, which meant that we're not going to maintain an office anymore. So life has changed quite a bit. But I tend to say that 2020 for me, if I have to summarize it in one word, like personally and very honestly, I use the word intense. I felt that all the things that I usually do in about like 3 years' time, like I now do it in 1 year, which is
Wow.
crazy.
That's double the speed, basically.
Yeah, just not just I think not just in terms of speed, but the amount of things we work on, or even the quality, like everything. Like there's a greater sense of urgency on many things. So like we went remote, and then we kind of saw the effect and the impact that it had on people. I mean, like while we were still shipping and everything, and I'm very glad. So we also went and kickstarted like a 4-day work week experiment. So we wanted to, of course, take care of the mental health of our people. We had multiple options actually: do unlimited vacation policy, that, and then also, of course, trying to find out like what was exactly causing the burnout. But we realized that it wasn't a workload or anything. It was just like we obviously hire very good people, and very, very good people tend to want to put in their best, and especially when they can't go on holidays, they're all stuck at home and nobody can get out of their city, then so that's when it happens. And then we realized, and I've been reading up a lot about what other companies do during this time. So we've then decided, okay, let's test this out in Q4, which was our hardest quarter, and we actually did it. And there was actually no change, and people really, really appreciated it. So then it became a great talent retention, and a way for them to know that the company really, really cares about them as well. So that's why I feel like, product and everything aside, I mean, you've just heard, like we are launching new products and we're building new things actually, even on Piktochart itself. So more than anything, I need our people to be not just motivated, passionate about the vision and the mission that we're working on, but actually they're rested, like they are able to give it their best, so they're not burnt out and they're like, hey, I can't think anymore. Like there comes a point when they'll just crash because of like how much intensity life has been so far. So I'm very grateful actually for everything that 2020 has taught us, but that's why I said the word I use is intense.
Definitely. But I agree with you. I found myself last year, for example, forcing, in a sense, a few of the team members to take a few days off. At first we would suggest it. Hey, you haven't taken a few days off since like February 2020, and it's November already. Why don't you take at least 2 days? And no, I'm all right. So then it became, what? Take next month. I don't take some days off. Like, yeah. Because at some point, maybe you don't realize it, but you are overworked, and when it hits you, it can hit you really, really bad. So, being able to. So hey, that's a great experiment you did.
Yeah. No, and actually this year, so we've decided to go full on, 4-day work week. And to be honest, I've not realized any changes apart from slightly happier people. Like we hear almost no, like nothing, right? Like no complaints on anything. And of course, like 4-day work week is just an incentive. Like we have to make sure that everything else runs well, like company planning and as well as the communication of the vision, etc., and having a very coherent message that we're emphasizing to the whole organization over and over again. But the idea is that the 4-day work week really is an incentive because we're trying to take care of the people whom we value in the organization. So yeah.
That's great. So I mean, it wasn't just for Q4. You are maintaining that for wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's a bold move, and congratulations on seeing nothing but positive results.
Yeah. I'm now looking forward to not just from the employees perspective, but actually seeing like real results when it comes to the growth of the company as well. I feel like we're within this year, hopefully we'll be able to see that, and I feel like the 4-day work week could be one of the reasons that we can almost attribute it to, because just truly going fully remote. And doing there were a lot of changes within the organization in 2020, like including the adoption of Agile, and then restructuring the product teams and everything. So there were a ton of changes that happened, OKRs and everything. I mean, like it all happened within 2020. But I really think that yeah, we're gonna hopefully reap the fruits of what we've done, yeah, in 2020. So
Right, right, right. Okay, well, that's great. That's great, and all the best. I'm sure you'll pull it off.
thank you.
So, going back to what you mentioned earlier about your company and what you guys do about visual storytelling, which is um, one of the main topics for this conversation. I mean, and these things about organizing a team and working remotely is the other big thing I wanted to discuss with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Um, so what would you say is the role of visual storytelling nowadays, and whether it
yeah.
changed from what it used to be 2 years ago?
Yeah, so I think storytelling's always been around, like even at the time when we started out Piktochart, like it's always been there. It's just that now it's like, I don't know if you all noticed this. So like one of my team members, like she went to attend a couple of like live conferences. They are marketing, design, like UX, like a really broad spectrum of conferences. And it wasn't limited to like just marketing or sales or whatever. So and the one common theme that she found was in all of these conferences, the word storytelling was mentioned to its death in
Yeah.
2020. And you would think about it, it's actually a very logical process. So looking at how a lot of us are confined at home, whether we be here or whether we be in Argentina or whether we be in Canada, like lots of people are going through abnormal like patterns of living, which includes us being secluded at home, locked up in a room, and then speaking one to another like that. And then, so what we can see is that people like what used to be okay communication. So, for example, I'll give an example. In the past, for me, like for a town hall, because I could be there in person to at least half of the company, it was a lot easier, I think, to build an emotional connection. So whenever we had a change that needed to happen through the organization, even if my message wasn't, to be honest, 100% clear during the town hall, I was able to still pick it up because then my leaders were meeting people, face to face and all that. So we would be able to gather, the general sentiment of the company and then like rework that. When you don't have that to fall back onto and every single communication and connections remote, and there's this whole phenomenon about Zoom fatigue and having all of these conversations now online, which we all know that an online conversation like this takes more effort because you're talking to a screen and you're trying to like project all of your emotions over it, so that
Squeezed
part,
in a frame,
yeah,
right?
freeze in
Yeah.
a frame. Versus previously, you would have all of your verbal, all of the cues and everything. And that's why video, for one thing, I really think it's going up. And then looking at even like things like Clubhouse, whatever, like I in terms of timing, like it picked up, it doesn't have video as much, like it's mostly audio. But then the idea is that people are looking for emotive cues. They want to feel connected, where I'm not saying that text and visuals, not really. It's just that as a medium, like definitely we think that video is like increasing, which we all know about that. But I felt that being able to hear, see another person carries a lot of context that you usually don't get through text or a blog article. And that's the emotive part, I think, that people crave. Like right now, people crave to be connected. And that's why there is so much of emphasis right now on storytelling, like I said, across the board, like used in sales, used in marketing, used in, product, used in UX, like every single conference, if you look, it's there. It's written all over in like
Yeah.
almost all of the titles, So
Yeah.
the world is really changing, and I think it's ultra important that anybody, actually, whether it be a C-level executive or a HR person or like marketing or salesperson, it's super important to understand now like how people are feeling and how do you connect with them at a time like this. Yeah.
All right. All right. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
agree. It's and it's challenge limited to new or unusual mediums, which is what makes it challenging in a sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. 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 So
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Great. So you touched on many interesting aspects. Because of what you do and what your company does, right? And your products, I'm sure you're exposed to, and you're constantly on the hunt for great examples or bad examples or
Mhm.
references on how
Mhm.
brands are communicating, how this
Mhm.
visual storytelling is
Yeah.
done. Would you have some tips or best practices or even examples to share
Yeah. Yeah.
about, yeah, a great use of visual storytelling?
Yeah, for sure. So we personally, like, our mission, like we've said, that it's to try to get as much meaning across, to
Hmm.
help our users to get as much meaning, not as much information across. Although that's always what our users try to do. They come to a
Yeah.
tool like us, and then they try to cram like 100 slides into it, like into a shorter infographic. But the idea is not to come up with more. In fact, it's just the quality of the information itself, right? So there's one example that I really, really like on Twitter. Like, there's this guy that I follow. I think his name is, yeah, Jack Butcher. Sorry, how do I share my screen? Just let me check that out.
There should be below, next to your
Oh yeah,
mute stop cam.
yeah. Okay, I'm looking at it. Let me just. Okay, there you go. Okay, are you looking at my Twitter screen? So
Oh, I can add it to the stream. Hold on. There
okay,
you go.
all right. Okay, so now it's showing.
It is, yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I
this.
love this guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
that's
follow
great.
him on
So
Instagram, actually, not Twitter, but yeah, same.
yeah, I follow him on Twitter, and I like I said, like, okay, not every single thing, like every single tweet like that I entirely relate with, but so many times everything is just done in ultra simplicity that, like in three diagrams like this, it like he manages to visualize a particular quote. I think he has a gift and a talent in doing this, but that's precisely, I think, the point that a lot of people need to get. Like, going back to a picture, like, spells 1,000 words, right? Like, going back to that, it's so very, very important that we all learn how to distill our messages so that they communicate a lot of impact. Using words, it's okay, or using visuals like this. And I really felt that this person understood um, how, like, how to visualize, and is actually really, really good and creative with the work that he does. So
I agree, and as I mentioned, I already follow him. It's what I
yeah,
like a lot. There's many things that he pulls off greatly. On one
yeah,
hand, is what you're saying about not cramming the audience with the message with information, but rather making sure a single message is
yeah,
transmitted
yeah,
effectively. And
yeah.
also, he has a very recognizable style.
Yeah.
um, I honestly, I don't think I remember that the name is Visualize Value, but the
Mhm.
style is
Yeah.
unmistakable. As soon as you open this Twitter feed, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I know, I follow him as well, because of
Yeah.
the style, the black background and the white
Yeah.
minimalistic
Yeah.
um,
That's right.
things
Yeah.
showing. And I guess that's also important, right, for a brand, not only to make sure that the message gets across through being careful with the use of resources,
Yeah.
um, but also ensuring a voice and a tone and a style, right? And all of that,
Yeah.
all of that is achieved by proper use of visual storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So, like, I think visual storytelling comes in many forms. This is a slightly more extreme form. I mean, this guy is obviously a designer. He's got a talent in distilling, stories into very, very simple visuals, and they're catchy. And he also manages to stay on brand and all that, like you said, and build a really massive following. But I think there's something that we all can learn out of this, which is that, sometimes it's how do I put it? And then I realized this more and more internally, that when we create internal, like, documents or discussions, like, I start to see a lot more visualization. Like, people would take their whether it's their iPad, start drawing ideas in addition to text, and that actually helps to like describe something really convincingly. So that is another, but that's internal, so I can't really show you like any documents from there. But the idea is that it's becoming like, how do I put it? Like, and for us especially, because now that we're fully remote, like documentation is super important. Every single decision that we make, like why did we change pricing this way? How did we, make this decision? Like there were three options. Why did we go for one of them only? And the justification or the rationale itself at least needs to be written down, because then it helps, every single person. As you're writing, actually, it really helps to visualize the ideas as well. So, yeah, personally for me, I'm seeing like that shift also internally, because people realize the need for better documentation and they're beginning to draw a lot more diagrams. Like I see lots more visuals in those documents. So
That's great, and I agree. One of the things when working, I think always, but particularly important when working remotely, is to be good or get better at communicating in a
yeah,
asynchronous manner, because you
yeah,
can't be jumping on a Zoom call for every single thing. That's how people get really, really tired, as you were saying,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, so companies need to get better at collaborative tools, at task
yeah,
management tools, at writing emails, right?
yeah,
Nobody will ever admit not being good at writing emails, but the truth
yeah,
is many people are not great at writing emails, and
yeah,
they would rather have a phone call. And
yeah,
the thing is, in a phone call, you on one hand you are, or video call, you probably didn't have enough time to organize your thoughts. You're simply
yeah,
vomiting them for the other person to interpret, and as you go, shape them up,
yeah,
right? Which
yeah,
is great for something. Some things is great for brainstorming when it's all everything's accepted
mm,
and let's just see what comes.
mm,
But on some other occasions, my experience at least, you want to format it and
mm,
more, right? And when you are forced to write an email or a presentation,
mm,
and then you have the you have the ability to include a
mm,
chart, a screenshot,
yeah,
even if it's a rough diagram,
yeah,
then it might take you longer to write that email or whatever, but
yeah,
everything is there, and then
yeah,
the other person in their own time, giving their best, can
yeah,
read through that.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
I mean, just going to your point of internal usage of this
yeah,
concept of visual storytelling and a
yeah.
richness to it.
That's right. So internally too, there's this like pyramid diagram that Matt Willenberg from Automatic, like drew up, and I thought it's
Oh, the
so
five
so.
stages of
Yes,
the
the five
yeah,
stages
yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
remote work, right? So before you get to asynchronous, and everybody is like completely location independent, the step is like synchronous communication first. And I think at Picto we're between the two, but we haven't made it yet fully into asynchronous. But that said, I personally am very, very zealous about my own time, which means I have certain blocks like in the day where I'm like, okay, I can have meetings. Let's say if I have all of my meetings in the afternoon, then in the morning I try to free myself up so that nobody disturbs me, during that time, and vice versa. So like I keep alternating between the two. And the idea is so that we don't default to immediately, like in previous times, when you still had the office, it'll be like you walk over to the other person, just tap on the shoulder and be like, let's talk about this. Now it's always like, let's write this down, let's record a video. And because you have to record a video or write it down, it forces you to be even better at your own, communication and your writing or your line of thoughts and just the anticipation. So I just see a lot of benefits in other sense, like I said, to move people towards more asynchronous communication in the future. Yeah.
Totally agree. We've been discussing those five stages of distributed work so much here in Workana. We consider ourselves, if I remember correctly, at between 3 and 4.
Yeah,
I think
that's where
five is
most companies are. That's where
yeah,
most of us are all there.
5 is
Yeah,
nirvana, which is kind of
yeah,
unattainable in a sense, right?
yeah.
But yeah,
Not yet. And also because for you to achieve five, you have to be completely location independent, which means whether you're whichever time zone you're in, there should be no difference. Like no,
right.
like yeah, your life shouldn't be pulled out of sync just just to meet somebody who is 12 hours apart from you. And I also think it's not unattainable, but I think it's going to be quite tough. Like you need very, very mature communicators within the organization. Lots of mature processes also set in place before the company can truly become location independent, I think. Yeah. So
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I agree with you on the advantages. It's in a sense the stakes are higher, but it also creates a greater sense of accountability. If every
yeah.
comment or request is recorded
Yeah.
and time stamped, then
Yeah.
you don't have that of no, I don't remember saying that, or
Yeah.
this just came in yesterday. No, it came in 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago. It's there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Very, very interesting. So and this is something I definitely wanted to touch on, which is not storytelling is not only you said it yourself, right? You're seeing in conferences across the board, whether it's UX, product, marketing, sales, storytelling. Everybody's talking about
Yeah.
storytelling, but
Yeah.
storytelling is not just. It's precisely what we are discussing right now. It's not just for the door out, right? It's not for when a company is communicating to potential clients, existing clients, or partners or vendors,
Yeah.
but also when a company is communicating with itself.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
something I really don't see much around being discussed. But I think
Yeah.
it's just as important because of everything we're just saying about how
Yeah.
productivity can
Yes.
be increased and remote
Yeah.
work properly
Yeah.
embraced.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really something that we're seeing. So actually, Piktochart is used primarily for internal communications. That is something that we have already noticed for a long time, and because of like the what the pandemic has done is accelerated certain behaviors like us too, right? Like we used to be able to live with like meh type of announcements or documentation, but now you don't have an excuse because like there is no way if you do not document yourselves well or communicate well, you usually only have one chance in order to like clarify something. So the idea is that I think it forces everybody to be better communicators, and in that sense I also see I think Basecamp released this like whole, like what they do, like guidelines to their own internal communications, which is it's just like a very long laundry list of like do's and don'ts when it comes to like internal comms. But that's a good starting point. And I also see that more and more companies are actually becoming more deliberate in terms of, well, how should we communicate? And that's like when people think about how does my company work remotely, they always think of all of these funny things like to do with benefit, like would they be working, like is productivity going to drop? But I'm like, that's the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is the company doing anything at all to change the way we're operating or communicating or encouraging? Because not every single person that's hired in the company would be an excellent communicator or an excellent writer. So all of these things, to me, matters more than the tools that we're using, or more than measuring productivity levels and all that. Like it's a lot about the systems and the processes or the values, of the company as we move and shift towards this internal work. And I do think that the bigger companies maybe are still trying to figure this out as much as possible, but I think the smaller and more nimble ones already realize that this is actually the core of what makes a successful company that has managed to shift to a remote environment. So
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Would you it's an interesting fact you're mentioning that Piktochart is for the most part used for internal communications, because
yeah,
then it completely, of course, supports what we were just saying,
yeah,
unsurprisingly. But I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the general population's take on how a tool like Piktochart is used.
Yeah.
Um, would you, of course, I understand you're not able to take a look at what your clients produce because of confidentiality clauses, which makes sense. But have they shared with you a particular feature or aspect they seem to enjoy a lot, or a particular way in which
Yeah.
they use Piktochart?
Yeah, so we mostly see, so for example, I can anonymize this particular client, but it's a very large bank. And they've told us that, and like quite a big number of them, signed up to use this within the learning and development department. So learning and development in a large corporation, they have tons of metrics because it's their job to onboard their people as quickly as possible so that these people are then like immediately functioning in their role
Productive.
within within the first
Right.
90 days. So they have a certain like KPI. So what they do is that they have tons of data that they're then trying to, well, how do I present this without overwhelming the more senior like directors, etc., with this information? How do we as a team present the most important KPIs, what we have done, what is the impact of our team in general, so that if they do this well, to be honest, then they get more budget, or they get more leeway in terms of the type of projects that they want to work on. I would say that this type of use case is extremely common at Picto. So to use us in order to present, whether it's data, it doesn't always have to be data. Sometimes it's like, another example I could give is recently lots of clinical trials, very obviously, not just due to the vaccine, but I think, they've been going on for a while. So healthcare is another segment that is quite big and growing one for us. And that, like, they would use this in order to, internally, they have some clinical trials, and they have to tell the entire, company about, like what was the success rate, what were some things that they have learned, and how do we sell this, how do we market this, how is it positioned differently. So basically it's like an internal fact sheet that they would be able to forward not just to their sales teams or marketing teams, but also like the whole company would have the same understanding about that particular drug and its effectiveness. So like these are all ways that people are actually using Picto in a very concrete way. It is a combination of using images and icons, diagrams and text. Obviously, like you need all of them, in like
Yeah,
telling such a story. But that's actually primarily how people are using Picto at the moment. Yeah.
that's all right. That's yeah. Thank you. That's very interesting, and it's precisely um, what I think is useful. Having a few examples to that as you just mentioned, right, to illustrate the how this could work, without, of course, losing sight of what's the end goal. The learning and development teams you mentioned, for example, they need to ensure that they get the right budget to work with every year, that they are meeting the KPIs. And I'm sure that kind of department would work with complex metrics, right? A
Yeah.
sales department works with revenue, that's easier. But
Yeah.
when it's about onboarding new people to a team, that's hard to
Yeah.
measure, right? I guess it
Yeah.
depends on the kind of team. So
Yeah.
there's many variables, and it's very easy to get lost in a
Yeah.
sea of numbers. So
Yeah.
definitely being
Yeah.
able to summarize that and present it
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah, lots of that. Also, like, I mean, smaller companies do use this for like proposals, and then pitch decks like to their clients, and then like also reports. So like when they make certain recommendations about what can be improved within the client setting, then they use us for like a couple of those type of things. So like the smaller companies obviously use us for a greater variety of things. The larger companies have a very set purpose. Like, the tool has to bring them that KPI. If it manages to do a better job at telling the story compared to their other tools and save them time, that's it. Like it has already met the purpose of like why they sign up on Piktochart. So that's in general what we hear about how people use Pikto.
Great. All right. Thank you. Very useful. Very useful. So, lastly, as closing thoughts, and we've been touching on this, so maybe not necessarily a new thought, but just a conclusion or a summary, as a message and or advice for other business leaders. Um, uh, how would you say uh, your products can help in terms of, and again, based on what we just discussed about being used more for internal communication than for outside communication, um, what would you say? What would be one piece of advice you'd give to other business leaders for keeping teams engaged?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, like I'm also thinking back, like since the pandemic started and all the different things. Initially, we tried all the smaller things, like, some fun games night, and then lunch and dinner, and then just seeing each other on Zoom, and having that so people can talk. But then I mentioned the whole thing about Zoom fatigue as well. So it seems like the most important things are still the core fundamentals, like ensuring that people have an understanding of the purpose of the organization and how it connects to their own purpose. Mastery, so encouraging their own learning and development, and then also autonomy. So trust is highly important, I think, in an environment like this. Like, it would stress the people out more probably if they have less autonomy, or if they are not trusted with the roles that they're doing, so that they can really thrive. So I encourage just ensuring that whatever the leaders do, beginning from the vision and mission, how we're going to achieve it and all that, like to ensure that the communication is very, very clear, so that people are connected to the purpose. And then also, like, in terms of like systems and environment, to just ensure that all of the key pillars that help to drive, like purpose, mastery, autonomy, like are really there, so that people can thrive. I don't feel that it's initially, like I said, we thought about, oh, maybe people need to bond more, meet more often, but that's not the case. Everyone wants to get their work done. They do want to feel heard and listened to and all that, but that already happens through if we've hired all the right leaders and the people, like it would come up through team meetings. Like, if once under lots of stress, like the team would be able to catch that and then kind of encourage one another, or the leader would be able to do so. So I felt that it's not actually doing anything different, but just looking at things from a more systemic and a much bigger picture. Like, is the company doing anything that encourages behavior that are actually contrary to ensuring that people actually have purpose, autonomy, and mastery? So that's what I would say. I don't think it's like doing anything crazy out of the box, or figuring out like what kind of other perks do we need, and all that. I felt that if these key pillars are in place, people will be happy. Like, with in a remote environment or in a pandemic environment or not, it's just that I felt that emotions are a lot more fragile, and people are a lot more fragile during a time like this, because there's just a lot more stress. Their own families, being locked in the same house, not getting proper exercise or work life type of, I don't call it division, but people could continue
like,
all the time. So yeah, all these things do need to be watched out for, but at the end of the day, it's still like, what is the company doing in order to help everybody feel connected to the larger purpose or reason to exist. So yeah.
excellent. I agree. If you sort that out, then you can have swag or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make a
Yeah.
difference, right?
Yeah, you can pay for lunches and dinners all you want, but people are not going to be happy, because at the end of the day, they're here to do work.
Yeah,
Yeah, and all these fun activities are important. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think that's depending on the culture of each organization. For us,
Right.
I feel like we have enough. Like, our cadence is good enough. They're not very fun, like they're all hands meeting and everything, but we do make a point to celebrate and bring the most important things in there, so we don't waste anybody's time. And yeah, but we don't have like casual like bonding activities at the moment, just because, like I said, there's already a Zoom fatigue. People are tired almost, like to a certain extent. So the more important ones that keep coming up over and over again still has to do with, do they understand what the company is doing? Are they excited by that? Are we enabling them to make their own decisions, or are there lots of red tapes, and then or are they restricted from making certain decisions and being constantly frustrated? That will get them more disengaged. Not not the
not
fact
the
that
other
we
way.
don't have lunch and dinners and all that together. So
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right, great. So, Ching, again, thank you very much for joining. I think this was a great session. Many interesting points came up regarding both visual storytelling and also team engagement, and which is what you were just sharing thoughts about. So very insightful. Thank you very much. Hopefully we can meet for lunch or coffee once the pandemic is over and we can travel, either myself from KL to Penang or the other way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, for sure. Kiku, thank you so much for having me. This was fun, and I really like how the two topics actually they merge together. Because the reason why you need to
They make
do,
sense, I
yeah,
think.
you need to be better storytellers is actually because it's connected to helping people feel connected to the work that they're doing. Actually, so it totally, yeah, and I know it's a very key priority right now in every leader's
It is, or
mind
it should
at the
be.
moment.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
All right.
cool.
Okay.
Thank you so
So
much.
again, thank you
Yeah.
so much. We'll keep in touch,
Yeah.
and everybody watching, thank you for joining. Yeah, make sure to follow what Piktochart is up to, both on your website, right, LinkedIn page,
Yeah.
and in general. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Okay.